Welcome to Beyond the B.S. with Jack Willard. I am Jack Willard, so it kind of ties in. This is our first show. You gotta start somewhere. The greatest selling book ever written tells us to not despise small beginnings. And this is definitely a small beginning. Even though I have over 3,000 subscribers as I talk to you here in May of 2023, many of them came for one particular topic. As we start to talk about the reality of the times we live in, it remains to be seen how many of the subscribers that like the chatty entertainment style, those topics, how many of them will follow us here to Beyond the BS. We may have to find a whole new audience. Although I know I've got some very smart people in the radio family. And when we do our live stream, sometimes on Saturday nights at 11 p.m., we call it Worldwide Ramblings. We hear from people in various countries and in many states in the USA. And I cherish that radio family, and I'm used to upbeat, light chatter. I spent a lot of years as a oldies DJ, and sometimes playing the current songs in the 80s. Before the 80s were considered oldies music, I was playing those songs, and I was paid to be witty, conversational. Sometimes I could be a little suggestive, depending what time of the day I was on. There's a difference between noon and midnight, for example. And I was able to bring a flow to my radio program, helped by, in many cases, some of the greatest music ever recorded. And people would tell me that they enjoyed it. To earn that compliment here will mean that we have to take this garden, which is just being planted, and cultivate it, water it, give it TLC if we want to see fruit produced, nutrition for the mind produced. Because as I thought about the title of this program, I knew I didn't want to call it Worldwide Ramblings. I wanted something different for the things we'll be talking about here. And I went back and forth with various titles, and then I realized, it occurred to me, kind of a revelation, that we have an epidemic of BS, not only in this country, but in other parts of the world right now. In fact, I don't think there's a sewer company that would be able to handle the amount of BS that is being flung. And it's having dire consequences. Horrific things are happening. People are suffering mightily. Just atrocities. Every day, all around us, if you're paying attention. Some choose not to pay attention. And I respect that, and this show is not for you. Beyond the BS is a platform to expose the darkness and then look for solutions. even in the midst of a storm, we can have peace and success. I believe that. If we have the right belief system, if we are a person who works on our character, works on our behavior. You start with behavior. Character is something that is part of the fruit. It's part of the fruit that can be produced if we are diligent, if we are disciplined, if we are serious about changing ourselves. Maybe we've lived a life of hypocrisy, a life of addiction, a life of compromise to the point of selling out our core beliefs. Maybe we have hurt the ones that we love, giving them lifetime scars. We didn't intend to do that. But then again, we were not careful to make sure that it wouldn't happen. We put our pleasure before their self-interest, before their well-being. Our pleasure caused us to lose focus and to behave recklessly. Sometimes just simply being a couch potato can be a demonstration of that recklessness. Hey, if you work a 40-hour job, maybe a job you don't like, something you don't have a passion to do, maybe you have a part-time second job to go with it. By the time you finally get to relax, the last thing you want to do is examine the darkness that surrounds you and to strive to be a light in that darkness. You just want to have a hot meal, perhaps a strong drink, and just chill out, to vegetate, to escape. It's definitely true that BS has invaded everything. Religion, small churches, mega churches, politics, politicians, of course, the media, the broadcast media. Since 2016, we have seen massive change, a massive shift. We saw reporters that we once held in high esteem, that we thought were, okay, we may have assumed that they had different political views than we may hold, but we thought that they were able to bring a certain amount of objectivity to their work. That they realized that they had a responsibility to do that and not to become a mouthpiece of a woke, progressive, evil agenda that is destroying our country, bankrupting our country both monetarily and morally, and pushing us closer and closer to a cliff. We thought that we could count on these reporters or even the opinion host to tell the whole story, not to cover part of the story up to sweep it under the rug because they actually joined the cause of the progressives. There's a big difference between old school liberals and today's woke progressives that have no character, that have no desire to serve other people. They have a belief system that has either come from someone they have listened to or they've conceived it in their own vain imaginings. And when they are elected into office, they set out to implement their ideas. And their ideas are riddled with coming catastrophe. They're leading us to that catastrophe. They don't have sound judgment. Professing to be wise, they personify fools, and they're not even aware of it. They have no idea that even they are not going to like the future that they're creating. And here on Beyond the BS, we want to expose that, and we want to be a rallying cry that there are better ways to do things. Growing up, I often heard politicians say, well, you can't do that because it would be against the Constitution. It's not supported in the Constitution. And that argument was often good enough. It sufficed. People would back off. But now the idea is simply that the Constitution was written by old racist white men. So we need to do away with the Constitution. We need to do away with that. Each generation, each new generation is more wicked than the one before. Instead of sinning in secret, instead of pretending at least that you love the country, that you appreciate the country, and that you respect God, you blatantly make it be known that you detest all that you have no love for your country, that you have no regard for law and order, that you have nothing but contempt for the idea of a God that you would be accountable to. When your parents don't parent, when they say, I'm going to give you freedom, I didn't like the boundaries that were placed on me, and I'm not going to be that kind of mother, I'm not going to be that kind of father. When you have that, you see each new generation be more depraved than the one before it. So you finally get to the point where you are drowning in depravity, drowning in filth, the muck and the mire, to the point where you eventually fall off the cliff. This doesn't just apply to America. This applies to many countries all over the world. It's in the Netherlands. Strong movement there to justify sexualizing children. A few nights ago, as I do this broadcast, I believe on May 17th on Fox News with Will Cain, who was hosting the old Tucker Carlson time slot, he did a story, and I'm not sure where exactly this is being done, but he did a story on a movement to present instruction manuals for young children on how to have sex, the various kinds of sex, the various kinds of fetishes, things like that. And Will Cain said, we can't even show this on television. We can't show the cover of the manual. It's that explicit. And when you look inside of it, they are leaving no stone unturned. There's a chapter in this manual for young children that teaches them how to safely ingest bodily fluids. They're not just talking about semen, they're talking about all bodily fluids. They're talking about awakening to your sexuality before you reach the 5th grade. They're talking about, obviously, boys having relations with other boys and girls having relationships with other girls. It's a real how-to manual for an adolescent child. We have seen this. We even saw woke people working for Disney that were laughing and giggling how they are able to put sexual content into cartoons. They get away with it. They get away with it. This is the crazy time we live in right now. And of course, all around us, we see unspeakable violence as the laws have been softened, as we have catch and release, where someone can even commit a violent crime and get away with it. Stealing from a store now in many cities is common practice. Many chains like Walgreens and even Walmart have had to leave a number of cities in places like Oregon, for example, and in Chicago, Illinois, because the crime is so vicious and rampant and consistent that you can't do business in some of the big cities. Philadelphia, they have a hard time in Philadelphia keeping up with the body bags sometimes. So many murders, so much vicious crime. New York City, once the showcase city, where people would come from all over the world, more and more people are staying away because they know that they're not safe, that there is a chance that they will experience crime personally, one-on-one in their own lives, or being overtaken by a group of thugs. And the police just never seem to be there to stop it. And we see policemen, policewomen retiring in record numbers because they don't feel the governor, they don't feel the mayor, they don't feel the district attorney has their back. And just like with the mentally ill, when you soften the rules, when you take away the requirements, all hell breaks loose. This is why we have all the gun violence. What do all those school shooters and office shooters, mall shooters have in common? They're all mentally ill. They're all mentally ill. And we told the mentally ill a number of years ago, hey, you have rights. You don't have to take your medication. You don't have to go somewhere where we will require you to be rehabilitated so you can be acclimated into society and have a good, positive life. Perhaps a real loving relationship. You don't have to follow the rules if you don't want to. And of course, the decision that is made by the mentally ill person is, you know what? Screw your medication, screw your rules, screw your programs. I'm not going to do any of it. I'm just going to be a burden to society. I'm just going to maybe live off my parents in the basement and play my video games and be supported by them. Just not deal with my mental illness. And that can lead to the violence that they have in the world of video games, whether it be Warcraft or whatever. That can lead to real life violence. Real life violence. Just like the person who watches porn night and day, that can lead to real life sexual abuse, rape, and murder. Murder. Based on the desire not to get caught. It's been said that if it weren't for the possibility of getting caught, men would be savages. Men would be savages. But now we're taking away, in many cases, the consequences so that you can get caught and still not face jail time or a large amount of jail time. You can basically get away with it, at least on this earth. So now we see mobs of teenagers, domestic terrorism, going into jewelry stores and smashing cases. And in the course of 3 or 4 minutes, they've stolen millions of dollars of jewelry. We see all kinds of crimes going unreported. We see slow response times because police forces have been decimated. Just not enough people to respond to the calls. And we see much suffering. We see a president. We thought he was at least going to be a middle-of-the-road, moderate Uncle Joe. He would be safer than some of the radical progressives. We didn't expect him to become a tool, a pawn, a mouthpiece of those progressives. We didn't expect to see him make our soldiers look bad in places like Afghanistan by not allowing to have them engage the enemy. We didn't expect him to tank the economy. We should have expected him to declare war on fossil fuels, on oil, because he said he would do that. And then we would see our president go over to Saudi Arabia, and beg for oil because there wasn't enough to go around all of a sudden. We were energy efficient, and now we were begging the Saudis for oil, and they just laughed behind his back. We've seen people's 401ks cut in half or worse. We have just seen so much suffering brought on by needless violence. Mentally ill people getting guns because we would not stand up to their illness. We would not say, no, not only can you not buy a gun, you need to be treated. You need to earn your way back into society. We're not going to abuse you in the institution, but you have to go into this program. You have to go into this facility and be healed through medications and through therapy so that you can have a much better life and everybody around you doesn't become a victim. Prince Harry is kind of the personification of the male of today, someone that wants to please his wife and will sell out his family to do it. We see a lot of what appear to be exaggerated claims. He will go to the ends of the earth to please his wife, but he will lose the respect of his family in the UK and Britain. We saw a sad Harry at the coronation of King Charles, and we saw a vindictive father who made it so he'll probably never see his son again. We saw Harry write a book, which then we would find out he really didn't write. A ghostwriter wrote the book and tell all the family secrets and claim that the family was racist. And then, of course, suffer the consequence of being humiliated when he decided to go by himself to the coronation and leave, probably never to return again. It's never the right thing to do to sell out your family, but sometimes we do that just by being selfish, just by making really bad choices. We didn't think it through. We didn't want to think it through because pleasure was more important. And so then we set in motion events that will cause damage that will last a lifetime for those we love most. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing when we see our children being sexualized. We all have dark thoughts, but the day we start to try and justify those dark thoughts and make those practices acceptable in the society, that's a sign when we are not only in the last days, we're getting pretty close to the cliff. We will reap what we sow. What goes around will come around. Will come around to us and will bite us. And if we are silent, if we just look the other way, then we are complicit. Those are the things we'll be talking about here on Beyond the BS. If you want to be part of the solution, if you're not afraid of the truth, if you want to walk in the light and not the darkness, that doesn't mean we will lead perfect lives. But if you want to be on the road to real peace, to real contentment, if you want to be used of God to not only expose the darkness, but to wage war against it, then there are things to talk about here on Beyond the BS. Don't be part of the BS. We've all lied. We've all found ourselves in need of forgiveness. But let's not become numb to what we need to do. We all have an assignment. That assignment is written on our hearts. And when we tap into it, we can discover truly amazing things. Wonderful realities that are so much better than the sludge that we settle for now, that we will wonder why we waited so long to make changes and to reach out to hurting people. I'm Jack Willard, and this is Beyond the BS.